Hello everyone, my name is Silver Willowing and today I will show you how to restuff a teddy, plushie or stuffed animal of any sort that has lost its volume over time. Most stuffed animals are filled with polyester fibers that lose their volume over time. They're very airy in the beginning and eventually as time goes on they kind of fall together and leave your teddy feeling a little bit slanted over or a little bit understuffed. So you will need a few things to make this work. Firstly, you'll need to find the teddy that you want to restuff. Secondly, you will need a needle and thread in a color that's somewhat similar to the stuffed animal so that it won't stand out too much when you get to sewing it. And always remember to be careful around needles, they can be very sharp. Then you will need some stuffing. You will preferably need polyester fibers. You could potentially also use cotton, but it's somewhat more expensive and it also has the risk of rotting over time. So I would recommend using polyester fibers. You can find them in many stores. You could also take another older plushie that you have that you don't want anymore and sacrifice it and take out its insides and then use those for the new plushie. You can also find old pillows, maybe even comforters. Anything you can cut open and you can take out the polyester fibers. It's actually used as stuffing in a lot of different things. And if not, you can go out and buy a pillow that's discounted or something and then take the polyester fibers out from there. Lastly, you need something long that will enable you to kind of stuff the stuffing inside of the teddy. I would recommend using something similar that the sticks you use for yarning. They are long and very effective. Choose one that's not too slim and that has a little bit of a round head, then it'll be easier to shove the stuffing in. You can also use pipes of any sort, sticks, even anything that can just kind of have like a bit of volume there, and then you can stuff it in so you're going to get the filling inside of your stuffed animal. For today's video, I'll be restuffing my Bulbasaur plushie. This one arrived a bit understuffed and it's very squishy all around, so I would like to get a little bit more filling inside of him to give him that much more volume. I have my needles ready right here. I'll be using white thread for Bulbasaur. I don't have a color that match him completely, but he is very light, so it'll blend better if to use a white one than a darker one. Here are the yarn sticks that I'll be using for stuffing to have a nice head that I can use for shoving in the filling. And here I have my polyester fibers ready. I have 6 of these bags. I hope it will be enough. As something extra, I bought this pillow, which has a very soft texture to it that's different. I think it's filled with something like beads, similar to beach, and I'll be putting that in the bottom of my Bulbasaur plushie to give him a special feeling. So now we have to get started with step 1. Bulbasaur is a rather large plushie, so it could make things somewhat more complicated, but this method will work on any size of plushie. So step 1 is finding a spot on your plushie that is convenient for cutting the plushie open. You want to look for a spot that's not as easily visible. So for Bulbasaur, we could, for example, use this right here. Or we could use one behind him, in his butt. This one is already not that sturdy from the manufacturer, so I think I'll be using this as my entryway to Bulbasaur. It's always important to find the seams of your plushie. Cutting just directly into the fabric is not a good idea. You must follow where the plushie has already been sewn and then cut those stitches up to insert more stuffing. You can use a tool like this that's meant for cutting up strings. However, you can also use a scissor. Either will work just fine. Since Bulbasaur's strings here are rather large, I will use a scissor to cut them open. So you have to be very careful not to damage the fabric. So now that we have cut one of the strings, Bulbasaur is fairly easy to open. You just have to be careful that the strings don't run too far. You don't want to make the hole too big, but not too small either. After all, you have to be able to get in there. Once you've made a hole you consider big enough, you simply just stop and let the thread sit there for a while. Now the time has come for you to stuff your teddy. So you want to sit somewhere where you can get a good grip on the teddy and really control what's going on. So you want to take your filling, your tool of choice. At first, it doesn't matter where the filling goes, as long as it goes inside. If the hole is big enough to put your arm inside, that's an advantage. However, if you're dealing with a smaller plushie, this might not be possible, and that's also quite alright. You can begin to attempt molding your plushie when you think considerable amounts of stuffing have been put inside of him. It's important to understand where the trouble areas is. For my Bulbasaur, it was the legs and the face. So getting a good stuffing in the leg is a good idea. Don't be afraid to take breaks and stop to move around the filling where you want it to go. I think Bulbasaur is looking considerably better already. Now for some refining work, I will use this stick to move around some of the filling to some of the harder areas to reach, such as the ears and the feet. So now you're technically all done. However, I did have something extra to add to my Bulbasaur, so I'll be doing that now. It's always important to keep the stuffed animal elevated so that the hole where you cut open is already facing upwards, so that no filling can fall out. The polyester fibers can make a bit of a mess, as you can see, so wearing an apron is a good idea. I have opened up the extra plushie by using a scissor, and as you can see, the small balls are already coming out. So I have to be very careful not to spill too many. I'm going to pour them inside a Bulbasaur and try to arrange them in his stomach. I have now realized that this was a mistake, so I will try plan B. I have emptied the contents of the plushie down into this bag, and I can now safely transfer it into Bulbasaur. I'm not gonna lie, that was horrible. But now we're ready to move on to the last step, which is sewing him together. Remember to be very careful around needles, they can be dangerous. Now you want to take a good amount of thread so that you don't run out. And then you just simply cut it. Be careful around the scissors, they are sharp. Then you want to take your thread and get it through the whole needle. This can be hard. A good trick is to just lightly put saliva on it so that it becomes more stiff as you push it through. It can still be difficult and might take some practice and attempts. Now I will show you everything you need to do. If you can, get rid of as much as the old string as possible, depending on how much you have on there. I still have a lot left on mine. So now we are ready to start stitching. And again, be very careful with the needle, it can be very, very pointy. So you want to start somewhere close to the seams. If you can still see some of the original stitching there, try to poke through it so it doesn't run up even further. You want to kind of take the skin out so you're kind of sewing on the inside, like this. You want to pull your needle through, but not all the way through. So you must leave a little bit there. And then you sew again in that same spot. That way you create a little bit of a knot. So once your thread is stable, if you've sewn enough on the same place, you can now begin switching sides. So my Bulbasaur does have these small balls, which makes everything a lot more complicated. Hopefully yours won't have that. And then you're able to stitch on the other side. Once again, do it in a similar manner, poking on the inside and then pulling your needle through. And then go back to the other side as well. It's very important that you go through the same area. Stick the needle down where the hole is. And then we go to the other side again. And also be careful not to tangle up your thread, because that's catastrophical. Try to see if I can save mine. I managed to do that. If you tangle up your string, you'll have to start over. So it's best to avoid that. So to seal up the stitching, you just sew the same place a few times, and in that sense you create a knot of just thread on top of each other so that the plushie will not jump up again. Once you've done that a few times, you can safely cut off the string. So now I dare say that Bulbasaur is so much better than what he was before. He's way fuller, much more cuddlier, and he now has an extra feature inside of him which makes his belly very special and extra soft. So the stitching on my Bulbasaur did turn out a bit rough. I did not have the best approach, so please feel free to leave suggestions in the comment section if you have any. However, he is now sealed. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it was helpful.